You know, think about the last text message you sent. You probably got a reply, a few seconds later, even if that person was on the other side of the planet. It feels so normal, right? But that simple little exchange is actually the very last link in an incredible chain of innovation that goes back thousands of years. So today, we're going to trace that chain, all the way from the slowest messages you can possibly imagine to the lightning-fast connections that basically define our world.
To really appreciate just how far we've come, let's start with a little thought experiment. I want you to picture this. It's the 1850s. There are no planes, no internet, nothing like that. And you have to get an urgent message from, say, Europe to America. How long do you think that's going to take?
The answer? About 10 days. Yeah, a solid 10 days on the fastest ship. An entire business deal, a family emergency. It could all be over by the time a single letter crossed the Atlantic. Now, today, that same message gets there in less than a second. It's almost instant. Okay, let's dive into the incredible story of how we pulled that off. You see, for most of human history, communication had one fundamental speed limit: how fast a person or an animal or a boat could physically travel. A message wasn't just information. It was an object, something you had to physically carry from point A to point B. And some of the early systems were actually pretty clever. Ancient empires set up these relay systems with messengers on foot or on horseback. In the Middle Ages, the fastest way to send something was, believe it or not, a carrier pigeon. Sailors even came up with this system of post stones in harbors where they'd leave letters just hoping another ship going the right way would see it and pick it up. Eventually, things like trains and postage stamps made the whole process way more organized, creating the system we now lovingly call snail mail. But that physical speed limit, it was about to be completely shattered. The next great leap forward wasn't about finding a faster horse or a faster ship. It was about leaving the physical object behind completely and sending the message as a pulse of pure energy. This right here, this is the moment everything changed. With Samuel Morse's invention of the telegraph, we finally broke free from the speed of travel. A message can now zip across a wire at nearly the speed of light. I mean, for the first time ever, news from a city hundreds of miles away could arrive before a messenger could even get his horse ready. It was a total game changer. So how did it actually work? Well, the language of the telegraph was Morse code. An operator on one end would tap out a series of dots and dashes, which were really just short and long electrical pulses, and those patterns represented the letters of the alphabet. Then, on the other end, another operator would listen to the clicks and translate them back into words. It was the first time we could send complex thoughts across an ocean in just minutes instead of weeks.
Now, the telegraph was absolutely revolutionary, but it still needed a trained translator, someone who knew Morse code. The very next step, thanks to Alexander Graham Bell, was to get rid of the code altogether. The telephone didn't just send clicks, it actually converted the sound waves of a human voice into an electrical signal and sent that down the wire. All of a sudden, you weren't just receiving a message, you were hearing a person.
So far, all these amazing inventions were about one person talking to another. But what if one person could talk to millions, all at the exact same time? This next phase in our story is all about the birth of mass media. It all started in 1895, when Guglielmo Marconi figured out how to send signals through the air, with no wires at all. He called it wireless telegraphy. And at first it was used just like the wired telegraph, sending Morse code between ships at sea and the shore. But by the 1920s, the tech had evolved to carry voices and music, and the radio became the new center of the home. Families would literally gather around it to listen to news, sports, and their favorite shows together. And then came the next huge sensory leap, adding pictures to the sound. Television did something truly profound. It didn't just tell you about a big event, it showed it to you, live, as it was happening. Think about it. For the first time, millions of people could share a single visual experience, like watching the moon landing in 1969. But, this powerful new medium was kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, TV gave us this incredible instant window to the world. But on the other hand, it brought up new worries that maybe we'd become more passive, less likely to read or go out, and maybe lead a more inactive life because of it. Now, while mass media was just exploding, there was another sort of quieter revolution going on. This one wasn't about sending messages far away, but about creating and saving them for ourselves. It was about giving everyone the power to write their own stories and capture their own memories. And this leads to one of my favorite little stories in tech history. So early typewriters had this really annoying problem.
The metal arms with the letters on them would clash and jam if you typed too fast. The solution was totally counterintuitive. They rearranged the keyboard to slow people down by putting the most common letters far apart from each other. That layout is called QWERTY. And the craziest part is, even though our keyboards today don't jam, we're still using it every single day.
At the same time, we were also figuring out how to capture images. The very first photograph back in 1816 took hours of exposure time just to create one blurry image. But people like Louis Daguerre and George Eastman kept refining the process until Eastman's Kodak camera finally made photography simple enough for everybody. From there, the technology just raced ahead through color film and into the digital age, which is why we all have a super powerful camera sitting right in our pockets today.
Okay, so this brings us to the final and honestly the most dramatic chapter in our whole story. The digital revolution didn't just invent one new thing. What it did was take every single invention we've talked about so far and merge them all into one giant interconnected network. So first you have the personal computer, which put a ton of processing power on our desks. But the real magic, the absolute explosion, happened when those PCs got connected to the internet. That combination created this global network that was part post office, part library, part television. It made it incredibly easy for regular people to talk to each other and share information all over the world. And this is really the ultimate point. That device in your hand, your smartphone, it's not just one invention. It's the grand finale of this entire journey. It's a telephone, right, for making calls. It's a telegraph for sending texts and emails. It's a typewriter with that same QWERTY keyboard. It's a camera, a radio, and a television. Every single link in that long chain of innovation now lives right there in your pocket. So what's the end result of this incredible 2-century sprint of innovation? Well, it's more than just being fast. The huge distances that used to keep people apart have practically vanished. It feels like our world has become a global village, all connected by these invisible threads where something happening on one side of the planet is felt instantly on the other. So from a 10-day journey by sea to a message that takes less than a second, we've built a world our ancestors could never have even dreamed of. We've managed to connect pretty much the whole world. Which leaves us with one last really exciting question to think about. What are we going to connect next?